Have you ever sat quietly in a crowded room, surrounded by chatter and laughter, and realized that you felt completely invisible, not to the people around you, but to yourself? You are right there in the middle of everything, nodding at the right moments, smiling when it is expected, yet underneath it all, there is a profound sense of distance. It feels like watching your own life through a foggy window, performing every action with practiced grace, while the real you is somewhere far away, waiting to be noticed. Or maybe you have felt it at the end of a long, exhausting day. You step inside, close the front door behind you, and lean back against the wood. The house is quiet, but instead of feeling a wave of relief, a sudden, heavy weight settles onto your chest. In that silence, you realize that the hardest part of your day was not the traffic, the work, or the endless demands on your time. The hardest part was carrying around a version of yourself that you constructed just to get through the hours without disrupting anyone else's peace. For so long, many of us are taught to master the art of belonging to everyone else before we ever learn what it feels like to belong to ourselves. We become caretakers, listeners, and steady anchors for everyone in our lives. We anticipate what people need before they even ask, shaping our words to keep things calm and bending our desires so we do not cause friction. But in the quiet process of holding up the world for everyone else, we step out of our own inner space. We leave our own house empty. We treat our inner life like a temporary stopover, a place where we drop off our tired bodies late at night, only to run back out early the next morning to satisfy another expectation, finish another task, or care for another person. We tell ourselves that we will focus on our own needs later, once everything else is taken care of, once everyone else is happy, or once life finally settles down. But that day rarely arrives. Instead, we adapt to living in a state of quiet exhaustion, so accustomed to ignoring our own inner world that we forget we were ever meant to inhabit it. When you spend all your energy looking outward, trying to figure out how to be acceptable to the world, your internal home begins to feel cold and unfamiliar. You start to view your own feelings as inconveniences that get in the way of your responsibilities. You hide your sorrow so you do not make others uncomfortable. You suppress your anger so you remain easy to love. And you tuck away your passions because there simply is no room left for them on your daily schedule. You live outside yourself, wandering through life, hoping that someone else will notice how tired you are and offer you a place to rest. Healing begins when you realize that the sanctuary you have been searching for cannot be provided by anyone else. It is a place you must rebuild within your own mind and heart. It starts with the gentle recognition that you cannot keep abandoning yourself to keep the peace with others. You deserve the same warmth, patience, and presence that you give away so freely to the rest of the world. Before we move forward into understanding how we lost this connection and how we can slowly rebuild it, take a pause right now. Let this moment be a quiet bridge between who you had to be for everyone else and who you are choosing to be for yourself. leave a simple, honest affirmation in the comments below, such as, "I am choosing to stop abandoning myself," or "I am coming back home to who I am today." Let those words serve as an anchor as we begin this path back to your own heart. Self-abandonment rarely happens in one massive, dramatic decision. We like to imagine that losing ourselves is a sudden event, a single catastrophic moment where we turn our backs on who we are. But in reality, it is much quieter than that. It happens in the small, almost invisible choices we make every single day. It is a slow, silent fading away, built out of tiny compromises that seem harmless on the surface until you wake up one morning and realize you feel like a stranger inside your own body. Think about how it feels when 4 o'clock rolls around on a long afternoon. Your eyes are heavy, your head is aching, and every cell in your body is quietly crying out for a moment to breathe, to step away from the noise, or simply to drink a cold glass of water. But instead of pausing, you force yourself to push through. You open another tab, take on another task, or tackle another item on your endless list, because somewhere deep down, you have convinced yourself that taking a break means you are failing. You treat your own exhaustion as an inconvenience to be managed, rather than a human need that deserves your care. That is self-abandonment in its most daily, routine form. Or consider the moments when someone asks you for a favor, something that demands time, emotional energy, or effort that you simply do not have left to give. Everything inside you is screaming a quiet, desperate no. Your stomach knots up, your breath goes shallow, and your heart feels heavy. Yet, as you look at them, the fear of disappointing them or causing tension takes over. Your lips shape the word yes before you can stop yourself. You offer up your own peace as a sacrifice just to keep the peace in the room. You tell yourself it is fine, that you can handle it. But deep down, a tiny part of you feels betrayed because you chose someone else's comfort over your own well-being. We abandon ourselves when we brush off our own feelings. It is that familiar habit of catching yourself in a moment of genuine sadness, anxiety, or hurt, and immediately shutting it down with harsh inner criticism. You tell yourself that you are being dramatic, that you are overthinking, or that other people have it so much worse, so you have no right to feel the way you do. Every time you minimize your pain or invalidate your emotions, you send a clear, painful message to your inner self. Your feelings are inconvenient. Your experience does not matter. And you need to keep quiet. Over weeks, months, and years, these tiny moments of neglect accumulate into a heavy, quiet grief. You stop checking in on what you want, what you like, or what brings you joy, because you have spent so long prioritizing what is expected of you. You start looking outward for directions on how to live, constantly seeking approval, permission, or reassurance from others to validate your worth. You become so accustomed to stepping over your own boundaries that you forget where you end and everyone else begins. Recognizing these patterns is not about blaming yourself or feeling guilty for how you have survived. It is about waking up to the ways you have been leaving your own side. Healing begins the moment you catch yourself in the middle of a tiny act of self-neglect. When you feel that tiredness, that knot in your stomach, or that unspoken no. And you choose, even for just a second, to stop, listen, and stay with yourself instead of running away. What does it actually mean to be your own home? For most of our lives, we are taught to search for home in physical places. A cozy house, a quiet street, or a familiar town. Or worse, we look for it in other people, anchoring our entire sense of security in their warmth, their presence, or their continuous approval. But when those places change, or when those people walk away, we are left feeling exposed and completely unhoused, adrift in a world that suddenly feels cold and uncertain. To build an architecture of inner belonging is to construct a sanctuary within your own heart, a place so sturdy, so compassionate, and so deeply grounded that no external storm can ever truly tear it down. Home, in its truest and most emotional sense, is not a set of four walls. It is a state of unconditional safety within yourself. It is the unwavering decision that no matter how difficult things get, no matter how badly you mess up, and no matter who leaves your side, you will never walk out on yourself. Imagine what it feels like to return home after a long, exhausting journey in the freezing cold. You turn the key in the lock, step inside, and shut the door on the roaring wind outside. The air inside is warm, the lighting is soft, and there is an immediate, comforting sense of ease. You do not have to put on a performance. You do not have to pretend to be strong, smart, or perfectly put together. You can simply kick off your heavy shoes, let your tired shoulders drop, and sigh out all the breath you have been holding in. Being your own home means cultivating that exact same environment inside your own mind. It means creating a gentle internal space where every single part of you is welcomed at the door. It is an inner sanctuary where your joy is celebrated without fear of it being taken away, where your confusion is met with patience instead of frustration, and where your deepest sorrow is held with tender, quiet compassion instead of being rushed to disappear. When you do not possess this inner home, every critique from a stranger feels like a wrecking ball hitting your walls. Every moment of loneliness feels like being stranded in an endless wasteland. You spend your life wandering from person to person, constantly asking, "Am I okay? Am I worthy? Will you keep me safe?" You end up settling for fragile connections and harmful situations just to avoid the terrifying feeling of being alone with your own thoughts. But when you lay down the foundation of self-belonging, everything shifts. You begin to realize that you are allowed to occupy space in your own life. You become the warm, gentle host to your own soul. When sadness arrives, instead of trying to lock it out in the cold, you sit down beside it and say, "I see you, and it is okay to feel this way right now." When you make a mistake, instead of tearing down the walls of your mind with harsh criticism, you offer yourself the same grace you would extend to a dear friend who is trying their very best. Building this architecture takes time. It is built brick by brick through tiny, deliberate acts of self-acceptance. It is forged every time you choose to validate your own hurt instead of hiding it, every time you honor your need for rest, and every time you look into your own eyes and decide that you are worth staying for. When you finally construct this sense of inner belonging, you carry your home inside you wherever you go. You are no longer desperately searching for a place to belong in this world, because you have finally become the place where you belong. Your mind and your body carry a quiet, profound intelligence, a wisdom that is constantly trying to reach you, even when you have forgotten how to listen. Long before your mind fully articulates a thought, your body is already telling you the truth about your life. It feels the hidden strain of a toxic environment, the quiet weight of unexpressed sadness, and the sharp pang of a boundary being crossed. But when you spend years living on autopilot, running on empty, just to meet expectations, you learn to silence those soft warnings. You learn to tuck those signals away into deep, dark corners, treating them as unnecessary noise rather than vital messages. Think about how those stored away signals show up in the middle of a routine, stressful week. It is that relentless tightness sitting in your jaw while you sit at your desk, clenching without you even realizing it. It is that shallow, restricted breath that barely reaches the top of your lungs because your chest feels trapped in an invisible corset of anxiety. It is the sudden, heavy ache across your shoulders while having a seemingly normal conversation, or that cold, hollow knot forming in your stomach every time your phone alerts you to a new request. We have been conditioned to view these physical and emotional sensations as inconveniences. When our head aches or our shoulders tense up, our first instinct is often frustration. We want to push through it, take a pill to numb it, or ignore it completely so we can keep moving forward. We tell ourselves, "Not now. I don't have time for this," or "I just need to get through this week." But what if those physical sensations are not betrayals by your body? What if they are actually desperate, loving attempts by your physical self to tap you on the shoulder and say, "Please pause. Something here is hurting us"? When you spend a lifetime burying your feelings, they do not simply vanish. Emotion is energy. And when it is refused a voice, it settles deep into your tissue, your posture, and your nervous system. That persistent fatigue you feel, even after sleeping for hours, might not just be physical exhaustion. It might be the emotional weight of holding up a false version of yourself for everyone else. That sudden burst of irritability over a minor delay might actually be years of unexpressed grief and anger that finally ran out of room to hide. Listening to these signals requires a quiet kind of bravery. It means stopping in the middle of your busy day, taking a slow step back, and finally paying attention to what you have been storing away. The next time you feel that sudden tightness in your chest, or that familiar knot in your stomach, resist the urge to immediately fix it, distract yourself, or force it away. Instead, sit down with that sensation as if it were a frightened child asking for comfort. Put a gentle hand over your heart or on your stomach. Close your eyes and ask yourself with real tenderness, what are you carrying right now? What am I trying to ignore? What do I need to feel so I can finally let it go? You do not have to have all the answers right away. Simply offering your own body a moment of non-judgmental presence begins to bridge the deep divide within you. When you honor the quiet signals you have pushed down for so long, you teach yourself that your pain is valid, your limits are real, and your body is a safe place to finally rest. Turning inward can often feel like the most terrifying journey we will ever take. It requires us to step away from the comforting distractions of the outside world and stand completely still in front of our own truth. We spend so much of our lives curated and polished, presenting a capable, resilient, and agreeable version of ourselves to everyone around us. We learn how to put on the right face for our jobs, our friends, and our families, hiding the messy, imperfect parts underneath a layer of performance. But when the noise fades and you are left alone with your thoughts, looking honestly at who you are, with all your unresolved fears, your silent regrets, and the ways you have fallen short, takes a rare and incredible kind of bravery. It is so much easier to stay busy. It is easier to pick up your phone, scroll endlessly through someone else's life, fill every empty hour with tasks, or constantly seek reassurance from people around you. Looking outward keeps us comfortably distracted from the quiet ache inside our own chest. But real peace can never be found by escaping ourselves. Carl Jung once observed that your vision will become clear only when you can look into your own heart. Who looks outside dreams. Who looks inside awakes. There is such a profound, quiet truth in those words. When we spend our lives looking outward, searching for validation, or waiting for someone else to make us feel whole, we are essentially living in a dream, an illusion that safety and completeness exist somewhere out there. But true awakening happens the moment you turn your focus inward with open eyes and a tender heart. Facing your own reflection is not about standing in judgment of yourself. It is not about keeping a mental tally of every mistake you have made, every opportunity you missed, or every time you were not strong enough. That is what our inner critic wants us to do. And that criticism is precisely why so many of us run away from self-reflection in the first place. True reflection is an act of deep, non-judgmental curiosity. It means looking into the mirror of your inner life and saying, I am ready to see all of you now. It means having the courage to look at the wounded parts of your story, the times you were brokenhearted, the moments you felt ashamed, and the hidden insecurities you have tried so hard to deny, and treating them not as flaws to be discarded, but as hurt places that need your healing touch. imagine meeting a younger version of yourself who is scared, confused, and desperate for comfort. You would never yell at them for being afraid. You would never tell them to hide away or feel ashamed of their tears. You would simply reach out, pull them close, and tell them that they are safe now. Facing your reflection means extending that exact same tenderness to who you are today. When you find the courage to look inside, the world outside loses its power to define your worth. You stop needing everyone to agree with you, love you, or validate you, because you have finally met yourself with complete honesty. You come to realize that the reflection you spent so long running away from was never your enemy. It was simply a part of you, waiting patiently for you to finally come home. Many of us go through life carrying an invisible, heavy suit of armor, packed tightly with expectations that were never truly ours to carry in the first place. We absorb old standards of success, perfectionism, and relentless performance that we picked up along the way, from society, from early family dynamics, or from environments where we felt we had to be flawless just to be safe and accepted. Over time, these external demands settle into our subconscious, transforming from outside pressure into a rigid, unforgiving inner ruler that measures every single thing we do. Think about the silent, lingering pressure you carry when you compare your real, quiet, daily life to an idealized timeline of where you thought you ought to be by now. You might find yourself sitting quietly late at night, measuring your worth against arbitrary milestones, where your career should be, how far along your personal journey ought to be, or how effortlessly calm and composed you should feel by this age. Even when you achieve something wonderful, that inner ruler quickly shifts the goalposts, whispering, "That was good, but it is not enough. You still have so much further to go." This constant weight of expectation creates a quiet, perpetual sense of failure. You live in a state of chronic inner strain, feeling like you are perpetually falling short of a distant horizon that keeps moving away from you. You work harder, push past your limits, and sacrifice your peace, all to satisfy an invisible judge that will never truly say, "You have done enough. You can rest now." Healing your relationship with yourself requires you to unbuckle this heavy luggage, lay it down on the floor, and open it up with gentle honesty. It means looking at every single rule, standard, and timeline you have imposed on yourself and asking, is this expectation actually serving my growth and my peace? Or am I holding on to it simply to prove that I am worthy of existing? Perfectionism is not a mark of high standards or dedication. It is a defensive shield we put on when we are terrified of being seen in our raw, human vulnerability. We tell ourselves that if we can just do everything right, look completely put together, and never make a mistake, we will be safe from criticism, rejection, and disappointment. But that shield is heavy, rigid, and suffocating. It protects us from being hurt, but it also prevents us from being truly known, loved, and at ease inside our own skin. Letting go of these excessive expectations is not an act of giving up, nor is it a sign of weakness or laziness. It is an act of profound self-respect and liberation. It is clearing out the suffocating clutter of who you thought you should be, so you can finally make space for who you actually are. Imagine how much lighter your steps would feel if you gave yourself permission to be a work in progress. Imagine stepping through your day without the constant fear of falling short, knowing that your value as a human being is not tied to your productivity, your perfection, or anyone else's approval. When you lay down the heavy burden of who you were supposed to be, you finally open up room in your heart to breathe freely, right here in the home you are building for yourself. Pay close attention to the way you talk to yourself when no one else is around. Think about those tiny, everyday moments when something goes wrong. When you accidentally drop a glass on the kitchen floor, stumble over your words during an important conversation, or misplace your keys when you are already running late. What is the very first thing that echoes through your head? Is it a calm, patient voice offering comfort? Or is it a sharp, critical whisper that immediately sighs, "How could you be so stupid? You always mess things up." For so many of us, our inner dialogue has been conditioned to act like an uncompromising, harsh critic rather than a supportive ally. We speak to ourselves in the quiet privacy of our own minds with a level of severity, impatience, and cruelty that we would never dream of using with a dear friend, a loved one, or even a total stranger. If someone were to walk up to a friend who was struggling and say the exact things we say to ourselves every single day, we would be appalled. Yet, we allow that cruel internal narrative to run endlessly on loop in our own hearts, believing that somehow, if we are tough enough on ourselves, we will finally become better. We often cling to this critical inner voice because we mistakenly believe it keeps us disciplined. We worry that if we stop beating ourselves up, we will become lazy, complacent, or weak. But harshness has never healed a broken heart, and self-criticism has never truly motivated anyone to grow out of deep pain. Constant criticism does not make you better. It simply makes you exhausted, anxious, and deeply afraid of making mistakes. It turns your own mind into a hostile environment, a place where you are constantly walking on eggshells around your own judgment. Healing your relationship with yourself begins the moment you notice that sharp, critical voice and make a conscious, courageous choice to soften it. It is about catching yourself in the middle of a mistake and choosing a completely different response. The next time you make an error, miss a deadline, or feel overwhelmed, pause for just one breath. Notice the urge to attack yourself and gently step in as your own defender. Replace that harsh, knee-jerk reaction with the warmth of gentle understanding. Ask yourself, what would I say right now to someone I love deeply if they were standing in my shoes? You would likely look at them with kindness. Wrap a warm arm around their shoulders and say, it is okay. You are tired. You are trying your absolute best. And one mistake does not define who you are. Transforming your inner voice is not about forcing fake positivity or pretending that difficult emotions do not exist. It is about cultivating an internal atmosphere of profound safety. It means teaching yourself that your worth is not conditional on perfection. When you speak to yourself with patience, grace, and compassion, your mind stops feeling like a battlefield and begins to feel like a sanctuary. You build an inner refuge where you can fall down, learn, and pick yourself back up, knowing that no matter what happens, the voice inside your head will always be there to welcome you back home with love. It is far too easy to embrace the parts of ourselves that feel shiny, successful, and easy to love. We readily accept the moments when we are composed, clear-headed, generous, and thriving. But true self-discovery and lasting healing demand something much deeper. They require us to open the door to our entire story, including the messy, uncertain, and painful chapters that we would much rather keep locked away in the dark. For so long, many of us attempt to divide our lives into neat, compartmentalized rooms. We put our proudest achievements on display in the front parlor, while shoving our past mistakes, our deep insecurities, our embarrassing stumbles, and our unhealed heartbreaks into a hidden basement, hoping that if we lock the door tightly enough, no one, not even ourselves, will ever have to look at them again. We live in constant fear that if those hidden parts were ever exposed, they would ruin everything we have worked so hard to build. Carl Jung once wrote a line that offers profound comfort to anyone carrying the weight of their past. I am not what happened to me. I am what I choose to become. This truth reminds us that while our past experiences form the backdrop of our lives, they do not hold the pen that writes our future. The difficult chapters you lived through provide important context, but they do not dictate your final destination. You are not bound by the desperate choices you made back when you were simply trying to survive, nor are you defined by the mistakes you committed when you lacked the wisdom you carry today. Integrating all parts of your story means walking down into that forgotten basement with a warm, steady lantern. It means opening every dusty box of old memories and looking at your past self with unconditional grace rather than burning shame. It is about recognizing that every single version of you, the young self who was desperate for approval, the confused self who stayed in toxic situations too long, the angry self who lashed out because they were deeply hurting, was doing the absolute best they knew how, with the tools, awareness, and capacity they possessed in that moment. When you refuse to acknowledge those wounded parts of your past, you remain fractured. You spend an exhausting amount of energy trying to hide from your own history, constantly terrified of being exposed. But when you integrate your story, you gather up all those scattered, broken pieces and bring them home. You look at your past and say, yes, that happened. Yes, it was painful, messy, and hard. But it brought me right here. And I will no longer abandon the person I was back then. Imagine how much peace comes from no longer having to hide from yourself. Integrating your story allows you to weave the dark threads and the bright threads of your life into one strong, beautiful tapestry. Your past mistakes transform into deep wisdom. Your pain softens into profound empathy, and your survival becomes living proof of your incredible resilience. You stop running away from your yesterday, and you step fully into today, whole, grounded, and completely at home within your own heart. Creating a peaceful internal environment requires clear, loving, and healthy boundaries with the world around you. Think about what a physical home represents. It is a place of sanctuary, a refuge where you can close the front door, turn off the harsh outside noise, and finally, rest in complete safety. A home built without doors or locks is not really a sanctuary at all. It leaves room for every passing storm to blow right through the living room, knocking over what you have built and leaving you exposed to the elements. Living without personal boundaries is exactly like leaving your front door wide open day and night, allowing every external demand, opinion, mood, and constant interruption to dictate the emotional climate inside your heart. For so long, many of us have been conditioned to believe that setting a boundary is an act of unkindness. We worry that saying no makes us selfish, cold, or unloving. We fear that if we step back to protect our own well-being, the people we love will turn away, leaving us isolated and rejected. So, we make ourselves endlessly available. We answer every call when our tank is completely empty. We take on extra projects at work when we are already crumbling under stress. And we nod along politely to toxic conversations just to avoid conflict. But every time you give away a piece of your peace to keep someone else comfortable, you pay for it with your own inner quiet. Establishing a boundary is not an act of hostility, aggression, or pushing people away. It is a clear, courageous statement of respect for your own energy, time, and capacity. It is the simple decision to stop sacrificing your well-being on the altar of other people's expectations. Boundaries are not walls designed to lock the world out forever. They are gates that allow you to decide what is healthy enough to enter your sanctuary and what needs to stay outside. In everyday life, a boundary looks like such unwavering self-respect. It looks like taking a full hour in the evening to step away from all screens, notifications, and endless requests, allowing yourself to simply rest without carrying a single drop of guilt for being temporarily unavailable. It looks like gently declining a social invitation when your energy is completely depleted, choosing a quiet evening of solitude and rest over a night of performative social obligation. It looks like looking someone in the eye with calm kindness and saying, "I care about you, but I do not have the emotional capacity to hold this conversation right now." When you begin to set boundaries, it can feel incredibly uncomfortable. The fear of disappointing others may knot your stomach, and your inner critic might whisper that you are being selfish. But real self-care is not always warm bubble baths and gentle music. Sometimes, real self-care is the fierce, protective love that steps up to guard your peace when you are too tired to fight for it. It is the realization that your energy is a finite, precious gift, and you are under no obligation to burn yourself out just to keep others warm. Every time you set a respectful boundary and hold it, you reinforce a deep layer of trust with yourself. You send a powerful message to your inner child that says, I am looking out for us now. I will not let our needs be trampled on anymore. Boundaries do not ruin healthy relationships. They clarify them. The people who genuinely love you and respect your presence will honor your need for rest and space. When you learn to protect your inner sanctuary with soft, firm boundaries, you create a home within yourself that is truly safe, peaceful, and entirely your own. Learning to be your own home is not a single, dramatic destination that you reach once, lock into place, and stay at effortlessly for the rest of your life. It is not a permanent state of enlightenment where you will never again experience fear, doubt, or heartbreak. Rather, it is a living, breathing, ongoing daily practice, a quiet and continuous decision to return to yourself with infinite patience, deep kindness, and radical understanding, over and over again. There will still be days when the storm outside feels overwhelming. There will be moments when life shifts suddenly beneath your feet, when unexpected news catches you off guard, or when old, familiar habits of self-doubt creep quietly back into your mind. You might find yourself slipping into old patterns, catching your breath, and realizing you just spent an afternoon seeking external approval or neglecting your own boundaries. When those moments happen, it is easy for that harsh inner critic to step back in and tell you that you have failed, that you have lost all your progress, or that you never truly healed at all. But healing is not a linear climb up a smooth mountain peak. It is a spiral. When an old pattern resurfaces, you are not back at the beginning. You are meeting that same old habit from a higher level of awareness, with a softer heart and a deeper capacity for grace. The true measure of your healing is not that you never fall back into fear, but how quickly and gently you notice it. Take a deep breath and guide yourself back home to your own center without a single word of judgment. Think about what it really means to possess an unshakable presence. Being unshakable does not mean turning into stone, closing off your heart, or pretending that nothing hurts. It does not mean building an impenetrable fortress where no emotion can reach you. True unshakability is the exact opposite. It is a soft, profound flexibility. It is the deep, grounded quality of an old tree whose roots run so far into the earth that even when the wildest winds bend its branches to the ground, it does not snap. You learn to let the winds of life blow through you, the joy, the grief, the uncertainty, the change, without letting them blow you away from who you are. When you rest in your own presence, you no longer wander aimlessly through the world looking for safety, comfort, or validation in external places. You stop treating other people's opinions as the ultimate truth of who you are. You stop frantically looking for someone else to fix your loneliness, because you have cultivated an internal companion who refuses to leave your side. You carry that sense of unconditional warmth, quiet confidence, and complete acceptance deep inside your own heart, wherever life takes you. Imagine navigating your days from this rooted place. When a door closes in your life, instead of spiraling into panic and questioning your inner worth, you step back into your sanctuary, hold your own hand, and whisper, "It is okay." We will navigate this next chapter together. When someone misunderstands you, instead of exhausting yourself trying to prove your value, you rest comfortably in the quiet knowledge of who you truly are. You no longer have to perform for your space in this world, because you have already granted yourself permission to exist fully. Whenever life feels fast, loud, or deeply unpredictable, remember that your home is never far away. It is not across an ocean, and it is not in a future version of yourself that has everything figured out. Your home is right here, in this very breath. Whenever you feel scattered, you can always pause, place a warm hand over your chest, drop your tired shoulders away from your ears, and step back into your own calm, steady presence. You are no longer running away from your own life. You are no longer searching for an exit, hiding behind perfectionism, or leaving yourself out in the cold to keep everyone else warm. You have cleared out the clutter, softened the harsh voices inside your mind, and built a sanctuary out of your own compassion. You are finally living fully, deeply, and peacefully at home within yourself, right where you have always belonged. We have walked together through 10 quiet, profound landscapes of the self. We explored the silent fatigue of living outside your own heart, the invisible daily moments where we quietly leave our own side, and the gentle courage it takes to stand before our own reflection without turning away. We looked at the heavy luggage of perfectionism, learned to soften the sharp judge living in our thoughts, and gathered up all the messy, broken chapters of our story to build a home out of pure self-acceptance. Now, as this journey draws to its gentle close, take a long, slow breath. Feel your feet grounded on the floor, your shoulders dropping away from your ears, and your hands resting softly in your lap. Notice the space you are occupying right in this moment. There is nowhere you need to rush to, no performance you need to give, and no expectation you need to fulfill. You are simply here, resting in the warmth of your own presence. It is natural to wonder what happens next. You might be asking yourself how you will keep this feeling alive tomorrow morning when the alarm goes off, when the world demands your attention again, or when the noise of daily life threatens to drown out the quiet inner peace you have begun to cultivate. The answer is both simple and deeply comforting. Being your own home is not about never leaving your center. It is simply about knowing the way back. You do not need to be perfectly grounded every hour of the day. You will still have moments where anxiety tightens your chest, where self-doubt whispers old lies, or where you catch yourself giving away your peace just to keep someone else comfortable. Healing does not erase your humanity, nor does it make you immune to the wild, unpredictable weather of life. The difference now is that you hold the key to your own front door. When the world becomes too loud, you no longer have to wander through the storm, searching for shelter in someone else's house. You can pause, place a warm hand over your heart, and step back inside yourself. You can look at your overwhelm with deep empathy and say, I see how hard this is right now, but I am here with you. We are safe. To be your own home means that you become your own most reliable ally, your most patient listener, and your most forgiving friend. It means that no matter how many times you make a mistake, stumble, or forget your worth, you will always leave the porch light on for yourself, waiting with open arms to welcome you back home without a single word of judgment. As we step out of this space and back into the rhythm of your day, take this feeling with you. Carry it not as a heavy rule you must enforce, but as a soft, comforting blanket wrapped around your shoulders. You have spent enough of your life running away from who you are, trying to fit into spaces that were never meant for you. You are allowed to take up space in your own life. You are allowed to rest. You are allowed to be whole. Before you turn your attention back to the world outside, anchor this intention deep within your heart. Take a moment right now to leave an affirmation in the comments below. Let it be an anchor for your future self on the days when you need a gentle reminder. Write something honest, grounded, and gentle, like, I am my own sanctuary, and I will always choose to return home to myself. Or simply, I am worthy of the same warmth and love that I give to the world. Let those words be your promise. Let them echo in the quiet corners of your mind whenever life feels overwhelming. Thank you for having the courage to look inward, to listen to your quiet truths, and to begin the sacred work of healing your relationship with yourself. Step forward now with soft shoulders, a calm heart, and a clear mind. You are no longer lost, searching, or stranded in the cold. You are finally, beautifully at home.